podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany. Today I'm bringing you the second episode of our entrepreneur tools as you requested today. And right now I'm in my cramped study, but I do have here Peter Hart, who you may remember from his Pythia interview, of course remotely due to Corona, but we'll be talking about his journey of entrepreneurship and the tools he used to get started during his entrepreneurship journey in the last 8 years. Hey Peter, how you doing?
How are you? Hi Jörn. Nice to hear you again and see you.
Totally my pleasure. When we've been talking about entrepreneur tools, basically you were the one who got me started on this idea, and so we thought, okay, we do more than one episode. We're not yet sure how many it will be, and due to our schedule,
that was the one who brought you this idea. I didn't even know.
Yes, we talked about it before, and then somebody else showed up earlier. And since we're both busy, the next one with us may take some time, but nonetheless, there will be at least another one. So let's get started and hit the road.
Let's hit the road. All right. So the first tool I want to recommend is having a file management system, especially for documents. And my big recommendation is making use of it by scanning all of your letters that you get from any state institutions, from any business partners, and anything similar. Scan them, upload them, and have them ready whenever you need them, even if it's 5 years later. It saves a lot of time in searching, and especially there's a lot of you might have a lot of trouble when you don't have your documents, whenever the tax authorities come to check on you, whenever your business partners don't remember which contract has been signed in the end. So scan, upload, name it so that you can find it again. And this saves a lot of trouble. We use Google Drive. I've been using Google Drive from the beginning, and we still do, but there's enough similar services where you can store your documents safely. And I recommend not to store them on your own server, because if you get hacked, all of your company documents are gone. But to store them somewhere where you have a very high security level, which these big companies provide.
I would personally add, because everybody is getting curious, what version of the contract you signed? Because contract negotiations can be very long and very intense if it's about enough money. And so you will have like 10, sometimes 50 versions of a very long text document, and maybe you were not diligent enough during the negotiations and assigned to them all the proper versioning and stuff like this, and so you end up not really knowing which version was the signed one, and that could be very embarrassing, but it happens more often than you would think.
Especially if you suddenly need to go to court with the case, and you can't find the signed document. That's unlucky, to say the least. Right.
Not that it ever happened to you right now, never.
Well, definitely similar things have happened to me over this time. Yes, that is even with all this precaution. But if I would just imagine that all of our paperwork we would have to find in some archive and hope that we put it in the right folder, then I would have spent a lot of my time searching instead of building companies. Right. So this is tool number one. Tool number two, starting very early with a CRM system. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. Thank you so much, Joe. Customer Relationship Management is also an organizing thing. Sounds boring, but is essential. You even start, no matter what you do, you will start gathering contacts, and you want to have your contacts sorted, and so that whenever you have a problem or want to start something up or start a partnership or whatever you want to do, you can look through your contacts, and you find all the contacts that you have made in that specific field. And the same rules apply as for storing your documents properly. Is remember to do it and tag properly, so that you also that you find the person you need, and keep using it. Usage. Yes, so that's number 2. Obviously, if you start building up sales in your company, you need a CRM system anyway. But even before sales, even if you do something that's not even close to sales stage, I recommend sorting your contacts, because you forget a lot. Most people forget a lot. And
plus, I would strongly recommend to add notes when and what you talked with this person. It's invaluable if you talk to a lot of people to have the right contact, especially if you can also search those notes, right?
Yes, make notes to your contact, so that when you want to get back in touch, even if it's after years, you can say how you met and what you've been talking about. People are very glad if you remember them, and it's much more of a warm call than if you just contact someone out of the blue and then just tell them, hey, I have your card, but I don't remember anything about what we talked about, but I know you're the right guy. That's a totally different approach than if you know what was the last thing you talked about together. Right. So that's number 2. Number 3 is not so much of a tool in a classical sense, but is these two I would call infrastructure, basic infrastructure tools. And now that you have these 2 basic infrastructure things, I would transition to a tool that I call Principles. There's also a book called Principles, written by Ray Dalio, which I highly recommend, where he describes his principles. But I think everyone should build up his own principles that fit to your company that you want to build, or the job you want to do, or whatever it is you do and who you are. You can get inspired, of course, by principles of other people. But in the end, you need to adapt them to you and to be able to live with them. Building up principles is a big topic and is an incredibly powerful tool, because principles allow you to make decisions based on decisions that you've made before already. So you've decided on a principle. For example, let's say that you only hire people who can work by themselves, who can work independently, because your principle is that you don't want to build too many management layers. So you want people who are independent workers and independent thinkers, maybe even, and that could be a principle for your company. I highly recommend thinking about these things. Think about what kind of founder am I? What kind of a business leader am I? So, and thus, what do I need to think about when I hire people? Because obviously, not everyone can lead everyone. So the people you lead need to fit to your style of leading and need to fit to your style of managing the company. And this is just an example for a principal category, right? But I want to go with this because this is something that you encounter from the first day when you think about how do you want to expand, and how do you want to hire, who do you want to hire, to the very, 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 very late stage of your company. Hiring is something that is always essential. So think about your hiring principles, think about your risk principles, think about your strategy principles, and think about the principles, for example, how do you want to balance your own life against your company life. Think about these things. It's very good to write them down and revise them constantly. They always evolve and change. Some get dismissed after a while, some get replaced, and some get evolved. But think in principles, because if you think in principles, it helps you with a lot of decisions, because you have a decision and then you can split it, you can grind it and split it into a few basic principles that you've established for yourself, and they can help you take your decision quicker. And number two, if you have written your principles down, you can explain them to the people you want to work with. And this makes it a lot easier for you and them to understand each other and to see whether you agree, whether you can agree on some principles, or you're maybe thinking very differently about basic principles. And this might give you a hint whether this could be an employee or a partner or not. Right. So that's number 3. Start building early. Start building your principles. It also is important because building principles is also a learning process, and it might seem quite trivial at first. For example, if you write down, I don't want to lie to business partners, that seems kind of trivial, but you start practicing building up principles. And then at some point, if you read Ray Dalio's book, he's presenting his principles, and it consists of, I think, over 200 principles, or even more. Yeah.
I was wondering, how many principles do you have yourself? How much have you written down about that?
I think I am at 183 or something. 183. And they keep changing, obviously. You develop yourself, your view on the world and on the company and everything they develop. And I think I'm revising them every 3 to 6 months. And I'm reading through them, and I see many times somewhere where I see that I've evolved them, and maybe some are too stiff, or maybe some are too broad, and it's very nice because you have some time for yourself where you can really decide who you want to be as a company leader, and what are your principles, where you want your company to go, and does it reflect, and does the current state of decisions that you make still reflect what you actually want to be.
Would you say people need to read Ray Dalio's book first, or be totally detached from them, think about important areas and develop their principles by themselves? Or does it give you a kickstart when you already have a frame of reference and you think that is good, that is bad?
I think both ways are possible. I think if you read the book, you get a very deep understanding, much more than I tell you right now, and within 5 minutes, about what principles are, and what the use of principles is. I highly recommend the book, so I think you should read it, no matter whether you want to write your down or not. But I think in any way is possible. Both ways you mentioned, I think, are viable.
I see. So none is better than the other. Anything else important?
Right. Okay. So coming to number 4. Number 4 is also more of a not a viable tool. It is building up company culture. So now I've mentioned two very basic tools in order to get started and have your things together, and one in order to shape your decision making. And now number 4 is establishing company culture. Book recommendation for this topic is What You Do Is Who You Are by Ben Horowitz. And the company culture means that everybody in the company is following one ground path, one broader path, and that things in your company are done with respect to your company culture. So here you can have very different approaches. To name a few, for example, Facebook's approach for a very long time was move fast and break things. So the company culture was we rather try things, and maybe our product from time to time gets broken here and there, but we move very quickly. And obviously they have revised that cultural tagline over time, now that they have become big and have a lot of responsibility. Obviously a bank wouldn't go with this kind of culture or a law office. So define a company culture, and things that make a company culture are also traditions within the company, and patterns and things that keep happening. For example, in our company, across all of our divisions, every 3 weeks there is a morning where we call it coaching morning. It's there for bringing knowledge into the company, and it's basically a day we invest into our people. So every 3 weeks, on that Wednesday morning, everybody gathers, and someone is presenting a topic that the others might not be as deeply, might not know as much as that person. So, for example, usually when I make my presentations, I talk about leadership. I train, or I try to bring what I know about leadership, and how to build up teams, and how to incentivize people, and how to management. That's usually the topics I talk about when it's my turn. And so I give my knowledge about these things to our teams, because that's the thing that I have most experience in our company, that I do mostly, and of course I want to bring this knowledge to our people in order to create more leaders and for them to build up their teams, and this is how the company is supposed to grow. So we have this because our culture says that our biggest assets are our employees, and we do, for example, this. We have any course our employees want to make is being covered by the company, even if it's very far away from their current job description. Any fair they want to go and explore new fields of business, it's covered by the company. So we have a very high priority on getting new knowledge into the company, training our people, developing our people, because we think this is the biggest value that we can provide for our people and for the company, right? So this is a reflection of the company culture. If you start with a company culture that says employees first, people first, then these are the implications. These are the traditions. Every 3 weeks, these are the offers that you give your employees, and this is an example for one trait of your tradition. So of your culture. So start thinking about what kind of company do you want to build very early, because this is something that unites everybody who starts working with you, and you really want people to understand what the culture is and where they're working at.
What would be a point I would like to emphasize here really specifically is a lot of big companies do have something like people first in their company culture, in their written rules, but basically they'll cut the parking slots for half of the people. So they need to come in early and search somewhere for just a parking slot. So all the people are already annoyed when they come in, and nobody will then believe people first. So basically it's something, if you write something in your company culture, in your statement, you have to follow through, and there's no way around it. Otherwise people won't believe it, won't live it.
Of course, yeah, it's not enough to make a fancy tagline that says we're the greatest company in the world. That doesn't make you the greatest company in the world. You have to live it, and this is where it gets interesting, and this is where it gets real. Another recommendation is for this topic, and I think someone who does this amazingly is the Airbnb founders. They have a lot of interviews that they've given, and they talk a lot about their company culture. A great example for a great culture and fitting to their business model. That's also something that the company culture should reflect. Fitting to you and fitting to your business. Like I said, you don't want to build a hospital and have your culture be move fast and break things. That's not good. So it has to fit, and so you have to think about it. It's not trivial. That's it. It's for 2 early stage, 1 shortly after early stage, and 1 mid stage. But all of these are relevant from start to finish.
Yes, I would totally agree. You can find down here in the show notes, of course, all the links. And that is, of course, not the last point where Peter will be back. According to our schedule, we'll have another Entrepreneur Tools together. And I'm really, really looking forward to it, as well as we are looking what Pythia really can do in terms of forecasting. Peter, it was such a pleasure having you here. Really looking forward to our next recording.
Thank you, Joe. And the pleasure was all mine. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who's listening and watching.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.